911, state your emergency. Hello, I can't help you if I don't know where you're at, honey. Where are you at? Where are you? I need as many units as I can get for Fairfield Road. Give me a number.
911, what's your emergency?
Hey friends, it's Fletch. I'm Vice President of Public Safety Solutions at 911 Inform. Welcome to this new podcast series, Off the Cuff, Confessions of an ENP. Brought to you by 911 Inform, delivering next-generation 911 services for the enterprise today and making every second count. In this series, we're going to be talking to ENPs that have been on the job for years, as well as those brand new ENPs that have just passed the test. We'll dig in and have an in-depth conversation and find out what the ENP certification means to them. We'll talk about why they did it, what it means for their career, and what they did to pass the exam. Industry certifications are important to industry professionals, and the ENP certification is one that's admired by many in public safety. So join me as we find out exactly what makes an ENP tick in this off-the-cuff podcast series, Confessions of an ENP. Hey, it's Fletch. Welcome to this episode of Off the Cuff, True Confessions of an ENP, out here in San Diego with Nick LaMontia, ENP. He's also the president of the NENA Institute Board. Thanks for joining me today, Nick.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So we're out here at the NENA Standards and Best Practices Conference, and with that conference every year, they also get together with the NENA Institute Board business meeting and the Critical Issues Forum. Give us a rundown of what we went through on the NENA Institute Board this year.
Well, we've actually accomplished quite a bit this year, and very little of it has to do with my presidency. They were all either projects that had been in progress already or just things we do annually anyway. For example, in today's meeting, we talked about our item review, item banks that we have for the questions on for the EMP test. We're looking at different ways to deliver and administer scholarships to people who may want to achieve their ENP at some point in their career. I could make an extensive list of what we've done. Actually, today was a high point for me because we had a joint meeting with the not only our group, the Institute Board, but also the Educational Advisory Board and the Board of Directors. And I've never met with all three of them in the same place, in the same room. First time in my 4 or 5 years as an ENP. So that was actually exciting for me. As nerdy as that may sound, I loved having everybody in the same room like that, being able to bounce ideas off each other and hopefully accomplish quite a bit.
Now, you also went over some really interesting stats, so I'm going to put you on the spot without notes if you remember any
See
of those.
if I can remember them. Well, and I'll even bring up one that I discovered lately in my research that I didn't actually put forward in the meeting. But what I did talk about this afternoon was since 2010, 2011, somewhere in that time, there have been about 3,500 people who have tested for the ENP program. But currently we're sitting on about 1,665 EMPs, and that's because some folks retire, some folks get out of the business, whatever the case may be. But the number I discovered lately that I found absolutely amazing, and one that's fairly common, is that there are about 6,100 PSAPs in the country. The number I found absolutely stunning was that those PSAPs are staffed by 95,000 dispatchers. There are that many dispatchers in the country, and I was absolutely flabbergasted to find out it was that many.
You know, it's interesting because, a couple of times I needed to estimate that number, and it was kind of a best guess. And I had come up with, just by doing rough math, of about 100,000. Mm-hmm. So it looks like that was pretty close.
Yeah, pretty darn
estimation.
close. Absolutely.
Out of 100,000 dispatchers, 3,600 ENPs, that's not too good of a number, but I think we're changing that.
Well, I think you have to figure that, and that's purely dispatch numbers. So of that 1,600 and change, it's not just dispatchers, it's people in the industry, it's vendors, it's administrative people, it's governmental folks. So I think that gives you an idea of how rare the air is in the ENP groups, I mean, it takes a lot of work. It's a challenge. It really shows your dedication to the industry to be a member of that small a number. Now, would we like to have more ENPs? Absolutely. Absolutely. But it just goes to show you how, what an accomplishment becoming an ENP is.
You know, it's one thing that I really realized or reaffirmed over the past couple of days. The ENP certification is really something that's considered very special in the industry. I mean, we hear it all the time, but we're kind of in that closed circle where we're going to hear that. Mm-hmm. But I think I've run across a lot of valid points that really verified that fact that across the industry, ENP is kind of a revered certification, if you will.
Oh, I agree entirely. I mean, when you see those three letters behind somebody's name, whether it's on a name tag or a business card, whatever it is, you know that person thought enough about the industry and wanted to be literally the best of the best, and they put the time and the effort into doing just that.
Yeah. So where do you see the ENP program going as far as growth?
I don't have a concrete number even in my head. I wouldn't hazard a guess to say, by a certain date we'll have this many ENPs, because to a large degree it's hard to predict where the industry is going, in the sense that there's always the possibility of having more remote dispatchers, and will ENP certification be as important to them if they're not working in an actual PSAP, so to speak? And there's so many variables into it. Would I like to see many more? Absolutely. Does a lot of that responsibility rest upon the Institute Board? Absolutely.
You know, a lot of people over the years have discussed about a higher level of ENP. ENP Pro, ENP2. It's had a lot of different names across the board. NG, ENP. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, how is the industry technologically changing to where it's going to almost require that?
Well, honestly, when I first became aware of the ENP certification, which would have been years and years and years ago, there was a part of me that felt very intimidated, not by the concept of ENP or by the process, but by the people who had become ENPs. You knew that they were on a higher level than I was at the time. And there's part of me that would be concerned about an ENP Pro or whatever you would want to call the designation, because I think that might put those people too far out of reach, almost like I don't even know what you would want to call it, almost a superhuman amount of knowledge. I wouldn't want people to be so intimidated that you couldn't approach those people. Although that being said, I think there is room somewhere to acknowledge the folks who are obviously the leaders in our industry, whether it's on the vendor side or on the PSAP side, some way to acknowledge those folks beyond just an ENP, but that would be well outside my pay grade.
I think it's really a technology difference, because you're talking about such a dynamically different network with Next Generation 911. There's new practices, new procedures, new protocols, new technologies. It's a different method of thinking, and that's going to take a different, in my opinion, from a technical side, it's going to take a little different certification. I'm going to want to know that if I'm building a next-gen 911 network, the guy has got his ENP X, whatever. And in order to get there, he had to have his initial baseline ENP.
Well, what if you had something like ENP-T for technological, or ENP T for telecommunicators, or whatever it may be, just an additional letter at the end to give you that kind of added
designation.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not really I'm better than you. It's just
you're a different kind of you're a quarterback for a different team. You're skilled, but you're just playing for a different team.
It's like an EMT and an EMTD.
Yeah,
One's
exactly.
certified in DFib.
Sure,
right?
Absolutely.
So if somebody's coming after you with paddles, you want to see the D.
Yeah, you want to see the D. I suppose so.
Show me your D.
Sure.
Of course, that would never happen.
No, not very likely.
Oh, yeah, it would. And that would be number one on TikTok.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, it would.
How is, you've been in the industry a while. How has multimedia, the internet, connectivity, all of this stuff that next gen is going to bring, how is that changing our centers today? And where do you see that making an impact change in the future? What does your crystal ball say?
One of my biggest fears or concerns is I was one of these dispatchers that very much enjoyed the anonymity of dispatch. You go in, you do your thing, you're there for 8, 10, 12 hours, whatever it is, but you can still go to the store. You're not getting bothered with work questions. Nobody recognizes you. You come in, you leave, you do your thing. But I know a lot of dispatchers who are still on the floor that worry if they have to take the equivalent of a FaceTime call with a victim of some sort or somebody, even just an RP of some sort, giving them information, all of a sudden their anonymity is gone. And I have had dispatchers tell me straight up that once that time comes, they will quit dispatch. And that bothers me, especially considering the trouble we're having holding on to dispatchers right now. All of that being said, I think the possibilities of additional data are incredible and very exciting. I mean, how easy would it be for somebody to stay out of harm's way but still be shooting you video of a bank robbery and the getaway car, complete with all the bumper stickers and license plate and a description of the driver and everybody running out of the bank? The possibilities are absolutely endless.
What about artificial intelligence and automation and speaking not to a human initially, but an AI bot that's collecting all that data and routing you to a human that specializes in what's going on for you?
I guarantee that's going to happen. It already happens to varying degrees. I mean, everybody's had that, replace those phone calls, if you press 1 for fire, 2 police, whatever it may be. And as far as I remember, humans weren't entirely pleased with that, but that is the state of the world, especially in the larger PSAPs or call centers that don't have that staff to be answering every single call, or the dispatcher to dispatch every single call. Not only is it going to happen, it is happening.
So where does the ENP certification fit into all of this from a call taker's perspective? What's the value there for them?
I see it on multiple levels, and honestly, for a lot of them, I think they see that as a sign of advancement, because as you and I well know, a lot of times dispatch is just the starting place. You either start in dispatch and then go to the jail, or you're working in dispatch while you're going to the academy or something like that. And I think a lot of dispatchers do view that ENP as not only am I gathering all of this knowledge, but I'm showing my dedication to my industry, to my particular department, or to my agency, whatever it may be.
To my profession.
Exactly. I care enough about what I'm doing that I want to be the best at what I can do. Now, will that mean a promotion? Maybe. Will that make it easier for you to get hired on somebody else or somewhere else? Maybe. It's entirely possible. But there are some people I know that are EMPs still in dispatch, and they're perfectly happy with that. They just wanted to become the best at what they could be. And I'm sure on various levels, it helps them in what they're doing to know, okay, well, this call dropped for some reason. Well, if I remember from my ENP, it could be because of this and this. There could be a CO, this. It fleshes out their job more and makes them more of a better, well-rounded employee at the very least.
As technology increases and we increase the ability to make the dispatchers, the telecommunicators, more valuable resources, I think one of the new challenges that'll face the industry is telecommunicator poaching.
Oh, absolutely.
It's happening today.
Well, and I guess to give a little anecdote, I suppose you may be thinking more along the terms of just a straight poaching, just right across the board, going from dispatch in one center to and being hired on somewhere else. But in my particular situation, I was in dispatch, and one of the gentlemen from our 911 office, I would see him periodically. He would come in and service our equipment, or if we had something go down, I would come in and talk to him. And we got to be friendly, and they were going to be getting a new 911 system, and they wanted the dispatch perspective on that. So he said, hey, can you come up to, I think it was Lubbock or something like that, and check out this new system for us? We want to see if it'll work for you guys. Absolutely. went with them on this trip, stayed friendly, all this other kind of stuff. I didn't know at the time that they knew there was going to be a personnel change at their office. So in all of our contact with each other, he thought I would fit the bill as their GIS guy. And just kept that in his pocket for a year or two, but eventually that personnel change happened, and he asked me if I wanted to come over from dispatch and become their GIS person.
And you couldn't find the way to the office.
Absolutely not. Well, honestly,
That's my one GIS joke, by the way.
I could have stayed in dispatch forever. I love dispatch. I could have done that till the day I retired or died or both, whatever it would be. But it was time to get on a regular schedule, to have the holidays off, to spend the time with the family. It was time after
grow up and have a life.
Yeah, I did 19 years almost exclusively night shift. It was time to be a family person again. So the timing couldn't have been better, and I'm extremely happy doing what I'm doing. I guess to connect all the dots, when I moved over from dispatch to GIS being an 8 to 5 as far as that goes, I was able to schedule the time to join these study groups, to research, to study anything I needed to do to make the ENP happen, because I knew even as a dispatcher that's something I wanted to accomplish. And being a regular person in a regular job, I could finally make all that happen.
It's interesting because GIS, whether you had this planned or not, but GIS became the new holy grail behind public safety. Everything is built and based around GIS and layers on maps.
You still need to know where to go.
You do.
You can take the call, you can have the callback number, but unless you know where to send your responders, you've got nothing.
Or which responders to send.
Exactly right.
One of my favorite calls is from California, and it was the Chevron oil refinery fire. Mm-hmm. And it was obviously a ring down because the dispatcher picks up the call, hey Chevron, what's going on? Right, so obviously a ring down into the PSAP. Hey, we've got a code 3 fire in building 2F, come in through gate 31, it's a code 2 response. The dispatcher says, okay, what does all that mean? What do you need?
Oh, no.
Right?
Well, you're
great detail, but wrong information.
You're not speaking the same language. No?
Exactly. And that's what GIS is about, getting everybody on the same page with the information that's needed at the right time that's going to facilitate the response.
And we've just scratched the surface of GIS. I mean, it's been pretty much the same look, same standard for a long time. But now you're entering this realm where not only can I tell you what square foot of the building you're standing in, I know what floor you're on, potentially. A lot of this is theoretical, but I can tell you what floor you're on. I can know what direction you're facing. I can know what utilities you have around you. I can know what previous calls we've had at that place. The additional information we can get is potentially limitless.
That's almost Big Brother scary, though.
I'll agree, but everybody's in love with, Minority Report and Demolition Man, and, everything is figured out for them, and everything is three-dimensional, and, it goes beyond being able to have a pizza delivered to you with accuracy.
You know what's scary? I mean, literally, for Minority Report with this 3D environment, we are literally on the cusp of that happening.
We are, and I wish it had happened when I was in dispatch, because I wanted to be that guy, making all the grand hand gestures, and it was not to be.
I always bring this back. 1980, Stanley Kubrick released 2001: A Space Odyssey, and in the opening shot where the guy is taking the shuttle up to the space station to get ready to go to the moon, he's reading the news on what effectively is an iPad.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're like, who's inventing the technology? The dreamers that are making movies, or the people out in Cupertino, California?
Somebody's got to make it happen.
Or are they both
happening? It's a combination of both.
It's all the Illuminati on the back end. Right?
Yeah. It's going to happen, and it will be in our lifetime.
Yeah, well, that's the scary part is it's not, I think we're beyond it's going to happen. I think we're literally, it's happening. And you just need to look around you a little deeper. And that's going to dramatically change the whole context of the employment crisis that we're in public safety today, where you've got somebody who is classified as a clerical worker. Warning, I'm about to step on my soapbox here.
Here it comes.
Here it comes. You got somebody who's classified as a clerical worker making high-level, intelligent, technology-based decisions and analytics in their freaking mind, and if they make the wrong decision, somebody dies. That's got to be fixed.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. I remember I think it was a bumper sticker I saw at one point early in my career, and it's something like "Dispatchers save seconds, seconds save lives."
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because that's what, and I say we, I still consider myself a dispatcher in a sense, because that's what we do. We are the first responders. We take those absolutely horrendous calls. We do everything we can to help these people. We are first responders, and I don't understand how we can be thought of otherwise, especially considering what it would take to rectify that is the stroke of a pen. It should have been done ages ago.
You know, the last time I worked in a center and got a paycheck was probably 36, 37 years ago. I still say we when I talk about this. You know, it's like once you've done that, once you've experienced it, once you've lived that lifestyle, it never goes away. And I'll tell you, the respect I get out of the industry just shocks me every day that I not lost that over 37 years.
They know you did it at one point, so you have earned some degree of respect, or they know that you can still speak the language. They know that you can have empathy for what they're doing and what they've gone through. I don't think that ever goes away.
Yeah, you know what? The phone rang. I had to answer it. Where are you? What do you need? Let me get the shit you need, and away we go. And that hasn't changed. The technology we employ to figure it all out has changed dramatically.
Well, I think it's all about the personality of a dispatcher, of a truly successful dispatcher. You have that empathy. You can remain calm. You have the ability to multitask, if that term is still used. You're a problem solver, and those skills do translate into different areas of your life. You know, if you're a good multitasker, you can have the laundry going while you're washing the dishes and, you know, sweeping the floor. You can be doing all those things at one time. If you're empathic, you could work at a kennel or a vet and be perfectly they translate into other things.
You know, a lot of people get down behind the desk, they put on the headset, they take a couple of calls, and they unplug. They just can't take the stress,
absolutely.
the emotionally, it's not for them. When I was there, the worse the call was, the more calm I was, and the more problem-solving logic came into my brain, because it was just something I felt was very natural for me. And again, the more stressed the caller was, the calmer I spoke. And it was just strange. And I think back on that, and I get goose chills almost thinking that I could do that.
I had a terrible habit, and I'm sure anybody I worked with in the past will tell you this, a nasty, terrible habit of whenever there was an active chase going on, didn't matter what agency I was working for, somehow I would muscle myself into that chair, because that's where I shone. If there was, the more complex it was, the more the more emotions were riding high, that's what I excelled at. And I would find myself taking over those situations, much to the chagrin of whoever I was working with. But they may have been relieved for all I know. Yep. But that's, I suppose it's the stereotype of the adrenaline junkie. You know, you have this adrenaline junkie in you that you need to feed when you're in dispatch, and I suppose that's how I fed mine.
You know, there's one night, and I remember this like it was yesterday. I dispatched 3 towns, all adjoining, all on the same police radio frequency, different EMS, same fire. But literally within 3 or 4 minutes, I had 2 calls, EMS, in 2 of the towns, and a third town had a serious MVA, so I had EMS, fire, and law going to that.
Sure.
And because of squad availability with volunteer, I had rigs going to different municipalities. And while they're responding, I was juggling them on who was closer, what was more serious in my head. And I'm on the radio, 321 go here, 211 go here, blah, blah. And you know, I reshuffled the whole chessboard in a matter of 20 seconds, and then just sat and looked at my console and went, yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, that worked.
And there was somebody in front of me going, wow, dude. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of cool, actually.
That is kind of cool.
I did do okay. That's all right.
You know, I always remember that little 30-second snippet of going, yeah, that's what I live for, man.
Well, the downside of that is, and this is one of the pitfalls of dispatch, is you do something like that, and you're in the moment, and the adrenaline's going, and you've solved the problem, and then it stops. You're done. For however long, you know, everybody's already on scene. There's nothing else you can do until you start getting the phone calls and, you know, run this and all that kind of nonsense. But you've gotten this rush, and then you have to stop. And you're just waiting for the next thing. Maybe it'll come, maybe it won't. And that does people's heads in. That's not good for your body.
Yeah.
But that's dispatch.
Well, you know what? I mean, fire department and EMS, people get blown out or dispatched via what's called plectron, right? Series of tones, dee, 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 and then you announce the call, you know, for your volunteers. We even had plectrons for the police department, in case of a massive whatever. Well, I sent my sergeant out to a large house party, and he's on scene, and I hear this scuffling come in over the radio, and nothing is going on that night, Nick. I've got my feet up on the desk. I'm probably watching TV, and I hear him scream, hit the plectrons. And I just naturally reached over and said, okay, Sarge. And then I'm like, did he just effing say hit the plectrons? I'd never blown out the police department, ever, in my entire career. You heard me. And then, bang, I snapped and I was right in place, blew it out, perfect, got the whole response there. They arrested like 25 kids.
I was going to say, was it just a bigger house party than he thought?
Yeah, I mean, and they were starting to get surrounded and attacked. I had 3 towns responding to this. And it was like, you know, I mean, we had 6 on the road in one town, 1 on the road in a little town, and 2 on the road. Wasn't a big...
Not huge, but...
The whole thing was less than some of a good mid-sized department, but it was 3 agencies. But again, you know, it's that, oh my God, it snapped. And, you know, natural response, yeah, okay, Sarge, whatever. Wait a minute.
Wait, hang on a sec.
What did you just say? That was a lesson to me that night. Don't ever...
Yeah, don't let your guard down.
And let your guard down, because that's what I'd done. I'd let my guard down.
Well, and by far the most horrific emergency calls I've taken have all come over admin lines. So never assume, and I'm sure every dispatcher knows this anyway, but you pick up an admin line thinking it's going to be somebody in the back or somebody's calling to run something or, you know, something very low priority. But hands down, and I'm thinking of specific ones that I definitely won't go into specifics on, but the most horrific calls I've ever taken have not been on a 911 line. They've been on an admin line. They had a payphone a block away within sight of out a window of dispatch, and an officer would be around that payphone somewhere, and if dispatch got a call of some sort, they would call that payphone, a blue light would go on above it, so the officer knew that there was a call happening, drive over to the payphone, answer the phone, and get the call. That's how it worked.
When it was time to work, it was time to work, though.
Oh, sure, and that was your family.
It was,
and that's why you still think of yourself as a dispatcher. You're still part of that family.
You know, and I was talking to somebody today, actually, about the NENA family and the 911 public safety family. And boy, I tell you, you know, today I saw that. This is the first in-person NENA conference that I'd been to in 2 years. And people I hadn't seen in 2 or 3 years, like I just saw them yesterday, new people that I knew but never met, like I've known them for years, and new people that I didn't know, just like I've known them for years. It's an amazing group of people.
Well, and that's another reason I loved having this joint meeting today with the Educational Advisory Board and the Board of Directors, is because there was no division between us. everybody knew that everybody in that room was dedicated to the mission, and that we were all speaking the same language, and we were able to accomplish things using a common language. Everybody knew what to expect of each other. There was nobody on any different level than anybody else. We were there to do the best we could and to do the best for telecommunicators or the 911 industry. And there was a little trepidation initially for me going in there because I had never had a meeting like that before. And I didn't know if I expected some kind of division or strata between different classes or whatever the case was. But everybody was absolutely on the same page. Everybody participated. Everybody gave great input and great feedback. It couldn't have gone any better in my mind.
This was probably the first time you met a lot of these people,
Oh,
too.
absolutely. I mean, I had known a lot of the names.
Well, certainly as president's the first time you interface with them.
Yes. Yeah, because I've only been president since last June, July. And as I said, I've known a lot of their names, or you'd see their pictures in the call or whatever the case may be. But in interacting with them, we were all on the same level. There was no division. Everybody was there for the same purpose with the same mission. It was refreshing. I felt great afterwards.
And after 7 months or so as the NENA Institute Board President, the organization still exists.
It does. I haven't burned it to the ground yet. I was going to find a way, but I haven't yet.
Nick, thanks so much for sitting down. I really appreciate it. These podcasts about ENPs, about the industry, I mean, they're all designed to kind of promote the program. What's your advice to the person who's out there who's thinking about their ENP exam and what it'll do for their career? What words of wisdom do you have to share?
You absolutely owe it to yourself to do it, because within you there is something to be unlocked. Nobody, and again, I said it before, this is more speaking just to dispatchers because that's what I am, that's what we are. But you are also more than that. And inside you is a future to be unlocked. You don't have to just be what you are. And if I can get my certification, I don't even know you, and you certainly can get your certification. You just have to put your shoulder into it and find yourself a study group, hit the books, and I guarantee you can do it. But it is possibly the first step that you take on unlocking a huge potential future. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that I would go from being an ENP to being on the Institute Board and then all of a sudden becoming president. And I don't know exactly.
Yeah, what the hell let that happen, man? There's something's wrong with the system.
You weren't there to vote on it, man. You should have been there. No, and I don't know what my next step is. It's going to be somehow associated with NENA. I don't know. The possibilities are endless, and it all started with opening up that body of knowledge and that study guide. Yeah. You absolutely owe it to yourself to do it.
Well, thank you very much for sitting down. Very interesting. This is the first time we've really sat down and chatted.
Absolutely. We've been on the same board together for years, but because of various things happening and, COVID and all that other kind of stuff, this is actually the first time we've met. Yeah. And we've even done a podcast before.
Yes.
Yeah, but that was all remote. So anytime you want to sit down for another one, I'm game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, hopefully we're getting back to normal and we can do this a little bit more in the future.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
Nick, thanks so much for your input and thanks for what you do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, that wraps up this episode of Off the Cuff, Confessions of an ENP. I'm Mark Fletcher, ENP, and I'm the Vice President of Public Safety Solutions at 911 Inform. Off the Cuff is sponsored by 911 Inform, delivering next-generation 911 solutions to the enterprise today and making every second count. Visit them on the web at 911inform.com. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter at Fletch911. Check out all my blogs and podcasts at Fletch.tv. And be sure to like and subscribe below. That way you'll be immediately notified whenever a new podcast is published. Thanks so much for listening. If you're in public safety, thanks for what you do. Take care and have a great day.